Hello!
Hi.
Welcome everybody to the Arcane Duels team. I am Koshade. How you doing today, Shark?
Fantastic.
Puddnhead? What's going on, man?
We are rocking today. Hopefully, I'll
Joining
be able to
us.
explain things this time.
Yeah, so this is going to be the second week. We're calling it the Dev Diaries number 2.
The beginning of week 2 playtesting.
I realize some of you guys may have just started playtesting, or maybe this weekend you're going to be playtesting some cards. We do have some minor changes after a week of seeing cards. We are keeping some older cards in. We have some new designs as well as older designs to look at. But in general, we're going to be just talking about the changes we're making. And at the end of this, we're also going to talk about a card contest that basically you guys are going to help create, and basically we're going to do it as a community poll. So
Yep.
yeah.
It'll be fun.
So I don't know, Shark or Puddin, do you guys want to take away at first, or do you want me to start this?
My first thing is we have had a lot of test data submitted already. Like, it's been a week.
Props
We've had
to all of you guys.
more than a
Absolutely.
couple games a day. We appreciate everybody putting in the effort to test this stuff and break the shit that we came up with because we know it's probably got some kind of abuses we hadn't thought of.
I am
So-
failing to do my normal job because there's so much data to go through.
Yeah.
Oh my
Thank
god,
you
I love it.
for all of the data. We continue to wish that we get more. How's that?
Yeah.
We're literally
Absolutely.
watching every replay that comes in, so it does take some time, but we do need it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do actually want to take a second here and thank Shark because his automation on what's happening in Octagon, it's just becoming so much easier to go through everything. And, I know there's always more to do, but the stuff you've done in the last week has been insanely good for testing these stuff out.
I'm just glad I can contribute. So,
Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
in light of that, shall we go with what we've been seeing so far?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
we're-
absolutely. So we've gotten a number of games for Elementalist, slightly fewer games for Monk, and some games
about
for other playtest cards that we haven't been able to test quite every playtest card yet, but some good data on some of the changes that we made.
Yep.
And we'll go over some of those later on, and
Go over the
added a few
philosophy
later
of-
on.
We'll cover the exact mechanical changes now.
Right. So this, the first one is the Elementalist is receiving some changes, as well as some of his cards. We realized through the very early on in that was just too good at getting mana.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
economy was insanity.
His ramp is pretty good for basically very little.
Right.
On the bright
And it
side,
has to
though,
do with
we
that
think
stupid
that
Academy card.
Well, it's some of the Academy cards, but it's also the bright side. Like, he actually feels different enough that we're happy with where that, like, the feeling is. We just need to mechanically dial him back a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So we also took a look at the Academy Elementalist to inform ourselves a little bit more and realized that his glyphs are only usable once per round in Academy,
And
and that they can be used on any friendly creature
Yep.
as well. So we have implemented that for Arena, and as you can see in the card that I assume Koshade has on the
he's
Oh,
playing
yeah.
it
screen right now, that each glyph can only be deactivated once per round for this particular effect, and each glyph may be for the Elementalist or target friendly creature.
Yep.
And that means that you have to be able to have line of sight.
So an example is you can target your Stormfront Elemental, deactivate your Fire Glyph, and give him 2 extra additional dice for an attack he does for the cost of 3 mana during the declare attack step. So that can be done
but then
for
you
anything.
cannot do that
one
again.
Right.
That round.
Even if your Elementalist quick casts a fire spell and then has his full action, you can't use that Fire Glyph again until the next round.
Right.
I think the only one that doesn't really affect is water because that's an upkeep effect and that's only once a round anyway.
Right.
Yeah, unless you could reveal some sort of water enchantment, I suppose. But
Yeah,
whatever.
maybe there's
Could.
Yeah,
involved.
Could reveal Deep Freeze during the
something like
during
that.
the upkeep.
But
Yeah.
regardless, like I'm really happy with the once per round and the fact that your target creatures can do it.
Yeah.
Let's talk really quick about the abuse of that sort of thing that we've been kind of mulling over a lot. And right now, fire we already knew was pretty good, so that's why we made it 3 mana. Air is something that we're watching right now.
Yeah, it's on the watch list.
Mainly when it comes to lightning attacks, such as the Stormfront, we're a
The
little
stun,
worried. It's too easy to get the stun.
The other one though is Frost.
Yeah, and the other one's Frost, and that is it too easy to for 1 mana to get 2 Frost tokens, which
Yeah,
is essentially minus life as a temporary basis. So it's possible Air might need to go up to 3, like the Fire offensive one, but it's something we're watching right now, and yeah, it's
we're
something
not gonna
that
make a change
yeah.
for this week. This week
Yeah.
we want you to test it as it is and break it for us so we can get some data on it for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Another point to consider is that all of these glyphs need to be deactivated during the declare attack step. That is
Except water.
Well, right. It doesn't affect combat, but that means before defenses, before blocks, before dodges, all that stuff. When you declare the attack, you flip the glyph, and you either get it or it gets countered. Which means that if you flip your Earth glyph and you get 2 armor, and all they do is crit, sucks for you.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
currently the answer is sorry.
That is something that I'm particularly looking at to see if anybody ever uses the Earth glyph, because I have not seen it yet.
So far before the change with declare attack.
Okay, Shark did it.
Yeah.
I did it a bunch
Shark
earlier,
did it.
but it was a quick game.
Yeah,
I like
but
it.
Anyway,
I get
something
it,
to keep in mind.
But yeah, it's something to keep in mind.
Just make sure that when you're playtesting it properly. Also, I just want to make a point about Amulet of Atonement, that you have to have priority to be able to use it, which means you cannot do it during quick cast, you cannot do it during upkeep. You have to do it when you have priority.
Yep.
So
and be lenient when you use the way this guy works.
Hey man, you just went a little robotic there. Could you repeat that?
Oh, be lenient with who you or with your playtest partner, only because sometimes they're gonna. It can only be done with priority, not during quick cast phases.
Yeah, same thing with Monk. When you're testing with Monk and like you want to declare the attack, like it's much better in playtesting to be like, do you want to parry, rather than just assume they know the rule. Just because it's
automated now.
It is okay, cool. But like even if you're testing in real life, just ask, because like it's one of those things that we want to make sure that you remember how to do it. Not at the end of the game go, oh, I should have done it. Yeah. And then, that sort of thing. Because it is still a learning process, but...
At least on Octagon, the turning incorporeal, resilient, and parrying should all be automated. The Counter-Strike won't be automated, but I'm working on something on that one, actually. So that might be automated by the end of the week.
All right.
The weekend.
The other thing we're looking at is Natural Fury.
Yeah.
Do you ever use it? Does it ever happen? How hard is it? That's the kind of stuff we want on
More data on Natural Fury is good.
I'm thinking right now it might be too expensive to use 4 glyphs. So if we don't get games using it, even if you guys are intending to, then we're gonna buff it.
Probably. It's on the watch list because of the fact that it really hasn't been used yet.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Which 4 glyphs, honestly, after having played the Elementalist in a little bit, is actually kind of tough to get going if you're also trying to do the economy. So
it is.
It's understandable.
All right. Elemental Drake.
Elemental Drake.
So we are dropping version 1. We decided that it was a bit too much option-wise to be able to have something like a dissolve, an acid ball, a flame blast, all that have very different options, to be able to pull it out with just a full action in either your mage or the Drake itself. So we're deciding it's a bit too much, so we're going to drop the version 1. But we did replace it with a version 3. This one it actually has a claw swipe. So if you do end up like Chant of Raging it will actually be able to attack something as opposed to just kind of flying around. But we decided to give it a little bit of an extra cost to it. And that is when you do cast it, you're going to take from your elemental a glyph and you're going to put it onto the mage or onto the Drake, and basically can cast non-creature spells from that school. So the fire glyph is going to be to the fire school, the air to the air, etc. if that's confusing rules wise or needs a clarification, it'll be in a clarification document. But I'm
And
assuming
if you
most
have
people will.
questions, ask us.
Yeah, I'm assuming most people will be able to figure out that acid is in the water school, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I believe when it comes to the Element of Drake, you can activate and deactivate the glyph in the same manner. That's something we're watching to see if it's actually too good or not.
Yep. Just
Um,
to clarify, activation happens when the Drake casts a spell, not when the Elementalist, but when the Drake casts a spell. You can deactivate it currently for the Amulet, and you can deactivate it for any other effects you might need it for, but the Drake would be the benefactor of like the armor +2.
yeah.
If you give it the fire glyph, it would receive the +2. Though I guess technically, since it's the Elementalist, and we went back and revised the fact that you can
Yeah.
do friendly creatures, he can also do that.
Yeah, no, you have to be able to target the mage, which theoretically it's flying, so you shouldn't have issues with that. But if you wanted to bring it back,
there you go. That's it. It targets from the Drake, not from the Elementalist.
Yes.
The biggest limiting factor with this is that the Drake is limited to only casting the spells from the school that the glyph is from. And if the Drake dies, your glyph is gone.
Currently, that's the intention with it, yes.
yeah.
So I'd also personally like some feedback on that as to how that feels. That may be something we keep an eye on as well.
I just want it to be clear that if your Drake dies, the glyph is gone, period.
Yeah, and this is supposed to be sort of a committal thing, kind of like a druid tree. But I do want to point out here that Natural Fury probably can't be used if you use the Drake, because it requires the 4 runes. If you want to adjust your rules because you feel like that's not fair, you can either reduce the runes down to the remaining runes on your Elementalist, something like that.
Yeah.
Just let us know if you do change it, because I would
Please
rather
tell us
have the Drake out and you use Fury with like an augmented change than you just say, "Oh, I just can't use Natural Fury."
Just give us a heads up on the test thing so we know what we're looking at, so we can interpret the data correctly.
Yeah. Looks like we have some questions. I noticed he has 135 spell points.
I got the questions in
Yeah,
the chat.
let's try and do questions after this then.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have any questions on the Drake, always feel free to ask in Discord, things like that. But these are the 2 we're looking to test right now. I'm thinking V3 is better, but you
V3
might.
is where we're looking to go with him.
Yeah.
But if people have a serious rule in.
And it's possible with our natural Pandemonium changes, we might do V2 as well. But let's wait till we get there.
I think that's the next card.
Anything else on this?
Just to point out, though, are we allowing Drake 2 with Natural Pandemonium still, or no?
So
with one thing that can cast creatures.
So when you play, only allow one thing that can cast creatures. The new ones don't cast creatures; they reanimate them. But we'll get to that in a second. So you can theoretically try V2 now with the natural.
If you're doing Pandemonium V1 and the Drake V2, you shouldn't be. How's that sound?
Drake the only stipulation, yeah.
Yep, that's it. As long as it's casting creatures, they should be mutually exclusive. But let's carry on to this is a good segue to Pandemonium here. We had some ideas to adjust Natural Pandemonium to kind of change how you think about the Elementalist, where instead of it being a spawn point, we still have a traditional spawn point version, which is the V1, but the V2 and V3 are more what we are calling internally, at least, the respawn point. And so the respawn point is a new take on how we think it would be at least interesting to run with these. So we're interested in any and all feedback regarding all of the Pandemonium versions. Yes, there's a lot, we get it, but let us know what you think.
So let's go over this really quick. So the natural spawn point that we had originally, it was basically generating too much mana, and it was too easy to get that it didn't feel like it was actually a challenge to do that. So we removed the channeling completely, and we made it so that it still gains channeling the same way as before, but it goes to a maximum of 2. Most players were able to get that within 1 turn from just like having their mage in the zone with an amulet. And shard. Yeah, right. So let's talk really quick about the nitty gritty. We have 2 other Pandemoniums. Sorry, they're on the same page here. So V2, Basically, this is another idea of placing a glyph on it. And what the glyph is going to do is it's kind of going to commit how you are looking at the board and also tell your opponent, this is most likely what I'm playing creature-wise.
It's more of a
And
telegraph for a bigger benefit in the end.
yeah, so like I actually like that as a strategic idea. Instead of just it's like a surprise anything, it's more of a I see where they're going. You know, like their
So-
Drake has a fire glyph and their Pandemonium has a water glyph. They're clearly going towards this like water creature fire based attack spell thing. But so when you do natural Pandemonium 2, you place a glyph and any creature that shares a school with that glyph, water by water, etc., and that dies, you basically can reanimate it by paying its cost minus twice its level.
Any elemental golem or sprite. But yes,
Yes.
any of those creatures.
Yes. And I want to say that it's possible that twice the level as a subtraction is too much. Keep in mind, if you kill this thing, you do lose the glyph right now.
And it's epic, so you don't get it back.
And it's epic. So we're
yes,
thinking.
There's technically the possibility to get a water elemental for 10 mana, but you A, would have had to cast the water elemental already, and B, lose it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
That's the justification for creating it. Let's see the test data. If you can break it, please break it so we can fix it.
Yeah. For V3, you guys want to take this one over?
Yeah, V3 is very similar concept in the fact that you can reanimate an elemental golem or sprite. It has the added benefit of if you are standing in the same zone as the Pandemonium when you cast originally, you get the discount by the level. But when you do the reanimation, you only get the levels discount from the creature in the first place. So instead of 2x level, you just get 1x level discount upon respawn. And then if you are in the Pandemonium zone, you also get the discount from the level in the first place. So it's cheaper than the original traditional spawn point. You get the discount when you cast them originally in the Pandemonium zone, and then you get a second level based discount when you respawn them or reanimate them.
Yeah. And this spawn point thing, that doesn't actually mean anything here, by the way. So
yeah,
just ignore that, you know?
The idea here, yes, it currently is one and across the board, so you activate all of your glyphs. We'd like data on that. We'd like data on how it's being used. Both versions, well, all of the versions, but 2 and 3 are what we're really keeping our eye on. Are they too powerful? Because they're the newest of the bunch. Are they too much? Are they too little? Do you like the concept? Do you not like the concept, etc.?
Question to clarify: does Natural Pandemonium version 3 give the Drake version 2 a discount when it casts in the zone?
Technically, it
See
would.
here. Once per round, when an elemental.
No, technically it wouldn't. This is when you cast. You being always
And
referring
you
to
is always the mage. Okay.
Yep.
So Drake
So you-
casting creatures, Drake version 2, which is the creature casting one.
It
If it
wouldn't,
casts
yeah.
in the same zone as Pandemonium, it would not get the discount because it's not you.
So this respawn point and spawn point, this thing, this place of power, requires you to use your full actions to cast your own creatures, but it gives you a significant discount on keeping them around.
Yeah. So the strategic implications are when do you cast the Pandemonium, and B, instead of losing tempo when you just lost a 20 plus mana creature, you have the opportunity to get it back for a much discounted price. We have some data, super initial data on it playing already, and none of it seems broken despite initial knee-jerk reactions. But if you can find a way to show us that it is broken, we'd love to know so we can fix it. It takes, from personal experience, it takes some weird thought processes that you're not used to with most mages. Like, it takes you outside of the box for your typical construction and planning on how to use this. So don't try not to be too knee-jerk when you use it. Let the data come to you. Like, use it, see what happens, see how the whole game plays out. Yeah, you may have gotten a water elemental for 10 mana, but what did it do for you? Did it do enough? We'd like to know the big picture. How did it play out through the whole thing? Because some of the playtesting that we're going to try to ask you to focus on will be familiarization with the Elementalist and the Monk. Just based on how they're constructed, they're quite a bit different thought processes that go into playing both of them right now.
Yeah.
So we're open to data. We would love to see it. try to reserve some of the initial judgment before you, or until you actually use it and play it.
Okay. Anyway,
I think we're on to the next.
going
the
out
rest
of the
of
Sword
changes
of
are a lot
Elements.
smaller by a comparison.
Those are probably the biggest changes that we're seeing right now. A lot of the other stuff is very minor in comparison.
or cleanup in some cases.
So we made a version 3 of the sword. Basically, you deactivate a glyph of the same school. That's could be a little confusing, but generally lightning is
not
air.
what it says.
This one is you deactivate a glyph. You deactivate a glyph in order to acquire the damage type and additional effects of an elemental golem or sprite.
It's like the sword that lets you use resonance for free, except it's not free anymore. You have to deactivate a glyph to do
And
it.
it's not
Basically, that's
resonance.
what we added. Yeah, I'm not sure why we put same school up here. That's fine.
So
I think the idea originally was same school, but then we were like, no, it's not a good idea.
For 5 mana, it didn't make any sense.
Well,
yeah, right.
The reason
exactly.
is because you could have given 2 of your glyphs away, and then you don't have that glyph to deactivate in order to use the sword. So
yeah, I like the idea of just saying the sword just activates with any glyph because it's like an artifact sword that has all these elements, and you just put magic into it to use it. Little minor things. Miradias, we sent it out as level 1. It's a level 2 card. It's always been.
It's still level 2. It hasn't changed. It's the level 1 art was on there originally.
Thank you for everyone that's pointing these out, by the way. Ritual of Kalik. So
another option.
We have another option. I personally don't like this option, but a few players wanted to try this, and that is instead of taking life to the mage, you have to do 4 damage to a non-mage friendly creature. I think this is still abusable in the same way, but it is reduced down to 2 mana instead of 3.
Yeah, it's lower mana and higher damage count.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll just keep tinkering with it and see if you like it. If this ends up being nobody uses it, we're probably going to cut it by next week anyway.
Yeah, we do have data that people were still using the old version of the life loss.
Yes.
So if nobody wants to use this, or even worse, if they use a Dorcius and then another creature, and this literally doesn't affect anything in the game, then we're going to cut it. Basically, I want to see if this is actually doing something that's permanent in order to give yourself a mana ramp.
It has to be a cost. Like you can't just get a mana ramp for free.
Exactly.
How it costs, how it affects the game.
Yeah. Anyway.
Minor adjustments to Storm Elemental, or Storm Front Elemental, excuse me.
Yeah, so flying Incorporeal, pretty good. With a good stun chance. That was also pretty good. So we made some minor adjustments.
The stun chance was a little too good, so we lessened it by 1.
Yep, we made it a 10 up instead of 9 up. And instead of lightning wind immunity, we gave it lightning -1, wind -1. The idea is that it's kind of a culmination of a bunch of things, like of water meeting hot and cold fronts, so it necessarily isn't immune to everything. So we're gonna try it out. Also, if you guys haven't fought this yet, we'd love to see more data on that. We've been seeing some adjustments where the Stormfront Elemental does die, and other games where people are just refusing to attack it. So it's sort of like
I've been involved with both, and they're both. I mean, I find this guy interesting so far, but let me know what you think in terms of power level.
We also made it legendary. I don't know if that's needed necessarily, but the idea there is a stun lock problem.
Right. The stun lock problem, just to clarify, is that you have more than one of these guys, and you can find a way to spend your air rune enough to do it. Though with the air rune change, we may not need that anymore. So let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all up in the air exactly how we want to do this.
Feedback on the combination of a
Get it up in the air.
Wow, I didn't even know
that. We are discussing possibly lowering its life, but we want to see more games before we do that.
Yeah, we'll make gradual changes to it, but we think we're getting it closer to where it should be.
Yeah.
Same with the wind elemental. Actually, it's no longer immune to stuff. Like it's no longer outright immune. It's got a lower life, and we made it flying. We understand flying and incorporeal is a real pain as a combination to deal with, so we need some data on these both in general for that. I don't want specific builds. I want to know general, like, look, if you didn't build against it, would you have built it against it anyway? Is it alone wrecking things? We need more data, but I don't want wild speculation. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there's things like Divine Might with some sort of reach weapon.
Yeah.
Or on like
There
a
are
flying
few
bear.
tactics to fight these guys.
Flying
Pillar's
bear,
really good against
Divine
these guys,
Might. There's obviously the pillar that most people are using already in their books.
Even the new pillar has been seeing a lot of use.
I mean, Elemental Wand with Telekinetic Bolt. There's
Also a good
actually
option.
there's a ton of options out there actually,
Yeah.
and I'd love to see a bunch of those before we really go anywhere. There's also cards, by the way, that literally just hold incorporeal creatures in place.
Vine Spirit, yes.
Granted, it's an upkeep, but they're also paying an upkeep, so think about it that way. So if you really are struggling, you can always just say just no to allowing it to move around.
All of these we want more data on.
Yeah, we also gave it +2 versus flying to be consistent with how air attacks work. It'll
This guy's a flying killer.
yeah, he wrecks flying right now. Yeah.
Anything else we think on there?
I think we
think
lowered his
that's about
life down to
right.
16.
Oh, that's right. Yep, the life went down overall, which I think is fine.
by 4. Yeah.
Yep.
He's still pretty dang tough. I think we're on to the next one then.
Yep.
So here's a new card added to the errata list. This new card is the Killer Bees that everybody loves. So we added the poison subtype to the damage. This brings them close even further in line with the intent at original creation. Prior to adding this, they were still ridiculously good for a 7 mana level 2 creature. They're still really good for a 7 mana level 2 creature. They just don't sting water elementals to death right now because that doesn't make any sense that bees would handle a tidal wave. Most of this is thematic. Some of it is game balance, but these guys are really good at doing things that they weren't intended to do. And if it ends up, a lot of the things I've seen against making this change is that they're one of the few things to handle things that are resilient, like zombies and water elementals and conjurations. And if it gets to the point where there's nothing to deal with those, let us know, and we might be able to create a card specifically to do that job. But we don't think Killer Bees should be the job fulfiller for that.
It also is really good at destroying buildings right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing it
Does that make
basically
sense?
fly over and kill like Hand Up Imshaw, then kill Mana Crystal, then kill the next thing, and it's like it's a bit much for a 7 mana creature to be able to just sort of like wreck face in a straight line like that.
Both
And
mechanically and thematically,
most players in terms of dealing with it are also spending between about 10 and 15 mana. Usually things like Burst of Thorn spam. Things like I don't know, Spray of Barbs, that sort of thing.
There's a lot of they're
area
not
effects.
as broken as they once were. The swarm change that we made originally has helped, but for 7 mana, these things are ridiculously.
Oh, they're still gonna wreck face. But
they're still good with the poison subtype. They're just not as what I would consider to be game breaking. So if you think we're off base with that, show us.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next? Eye for an Eye?
The Eye for an Eye.
That's another card we've had a lot of complaints about.
We've also added this one to the errata list. It now is a mandatory reveal upon being attacked.
Yep. Not a
that's
May,
the only
it's a
change.
mandatory.
It's the only change.
So we were noticing a lot of players were refusing to actually attack Holy Mages because like they would have like a bear out and they would say, I'm just not going to attack in because I know the bear will just die. And that's creating a situation that's extending games out. And it's ending up where you spend 4 mana and you're essentially dealing oftentimes 7 to 10 damage depending on what kind of buffs you have. And it's also, I have seen before this card 0 draws, but now with this card, I'm probably seeing draws probably in a 1 out of every like 10 to 15 games, where both of them have a race. Yeah, and the idea of that is that you should not have a draw for a game. So the idea of making it, yeah, I mean it's basically it's not a good sort of design. So we're making it a must reveal in the sense that if you attack with your little guy first or a weak attack, you'll know they'll have to reveal it. And the same idea with this is that well, not the same. It still is stronger than like a dodge or a block or something, because because basically it's better than a defense still.
Does the damage back. It's
So it's still a strong card. And yeah, I'd love to see some data on that. I think most people aren't going to say this is a bad change, especially when versing this.
The intent is to add more tactics to counter it, as opposed to straight up adding a card that says F5 or an I, you know?
Yeah.
So this is intending to add more tactical options for the player against it, while still remaining or keeping the tempo for that player who cast it in the first place. Like,
oh yeah.
it's still a tempo play, especially if they have to attack twice to get rid of it to get their big guy to attack. It's just not quite as 4 mana for 10 damagey, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not quite as skewing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's about all I have on that one. So
Martial Mastery. I don't know.
Yep.
Do you guys want to talk about this or?
I got it.
Yeah,
It's
man.
cool.
You got it.
So we were noticing that Martial Mastery was buffing meteors and sprays of barbs.
Tsunami was great.
And
Tsunami was
tsunamis
cool too, yeah.
and firestorms and all these other things that aren't very martial or very monk-like.
Yeah.
So what we decided to do was put an errata in here that allows it to function on anything that is trained for the monk, or a melee attack for the monk. So that includes telekinetic burst, telekinetic bolt, force daggers, and what is it? The
other one.
Sweeping one.
Yeah.
Whatever. Oh, force hammer.
Force daggers.
It works on force hammer.
Oh, it does work on force hammer.
It does work on force hammer.
Yep.
So
yep.
That we're watching that one. But it also works on all of the melee equipment that the monk is not trained in, such as Vorpal Blade and Morning Star and things like that, because those are martial attacks, basically. So anything that the monk is trained in or that is a melee attack, the Martial Mastery buff will work on it.
Yep. The intent is to curb the weird interactions with it.
Just a side note on those monk games. My God, you guys are ridiculous in how you do this.
We love it. We love it.
Double
Yes,
meteors.
crazy.
Really, guys? I love it.
Awesome.
We're gonna probably talk about the monk really quick later about different tactics or strategies we're seeing, and I would love to see you guys maybe see you guys use those in further games or how you're gonna counter them. But we'll talk about that later, which is right now apparently because we're at the end of our changes.
Yeah.
That's all the card changes.
The Octagon patch notes are posted in the Discord and on the forum, so if you have questions and or something is not working like you think it should be, let me know. I will either fix it or tell you it's been fixed.
I think this is on this.
Yeah,
this is a brief.
One.
Feedback focus. Okay,
yes.
So
this week, focus on this kind of stuff.
We want to see games. Of course, do whatever you're going to do normally, or if you don't want to do this, that's fine. But if you're looking to be like, what do they need data on that might need to be changed?
Yep.
Thoughtspore monks. Turns out they're actually people aren't expecting them.
We've seen some interesting tactics. We want to know if it's more of a tactic that people aren't ready for and can adjust to, or is it too strong because you can't react to it when you see it no matter what.
I think they were running.
The point being that you can have 2 Thoughtspores on turn 1.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we need more data on whether that's breaking the game or just need to rethink how you do that.
Yeah.
Especially when combined with Meditation Amulet and higher level spells on your Thoughtspores.
Which, by the way, you can Meditation Amulet twice in a round. So if you are looking to try and get 2 bolder Thoughtspores, it's very possible. The question is, how are people countering that? It might just be a simple adjustment in how people are looking at the game, but we're looking to get feedback on that.
The example we have for what we mean by tactical adjustment is that the Rush Master can be devastating if you don't know it's coming and you aren't ready for it and you haven't seen it ever.
Yeah.
But once you've seen it once or twice, you can kind of counter it because you know the steps you need to take to make sure they run out of gas before you do. We want to know if the monk is in that kind of category, or is this a whole new category we need to be worried about?
We already talked about this but Natural Fury, we haven't seen it get used too much. We just want to see more uses, and we're probably
data.
going to buff it, remove it, depending on
If
what
you
kind of
can't
feedback we
use
get.
it, we would like to know that too. If you wanted to but couldn't, and or intended to test it but couldn't, that's helpful data.
Yeah, we have
We're
some
leaning
ideas
towards
on
it being
how
better.
we're planning to adjust it in the future, and so we just want to know what your experiences are and what, and you could even throw in there what you think would have made it usable in the situation that you were facing and couldn't use it.
General feedback on that one. Is
Yep.
good.
I believe we talked about this, but the Glyph Transfer idea for the Drake and the Natural Pandemonium, we want feedback on that with games, obviously. And once you've built books and have tried it, we want your opinion on if it restricts you too much. The
If you
Monk,
can send those with the replay so we can directly correlate it to, it'd be helpful. But we get the idea if you can't.
yeah, obviously replays are the best way that we can understand why you're having the reasoning that you're having.
Yep.
The Monk right now, we're seeing some wins over different tactics you're not seeing, but we're also seeing the Monk barely lose in a lot of things. We
A lot
think
of times
it's
just delaying the inevitable.
yeah, we think it's actually in a really good spot right now, but we just are looking for seeing if he actually needs or she actually needs a buff right now. We're not. But we don't want to commit anything because we've changed Martial Mastery to weaken her a little bit, and we don't know if that's going to put it over an edge that we're not sure of. Also, we've seen about a split between Ghost Form and Resilience, the
More
defensive
feedback on
stance.
those is good.
So, keep using both. The fact that Ghost Form gives you Ethereal might be a reason to choose that. But we're really not seeing Ethereal get used besides the new elementals. So
they're starting to get there because of the new stuff.
exactly,
and because of the change. But it takes an adjustment period for people to think about it too. So we understand if I should have run this and I didn't. But...
Yeah, I would definitely. Everybody knows how Resilient works because zombies have been everywhere for a number of years.
Yes.
But I would read up on Incorporeal actually does, and be really cognizant of how you can maximize it. For instance, incorporeal creatures are burn proof.
Yes.
So if you have burns on you, they go away when you turn incorporeal.
Yep.
So
there's a lot of
same thing with corrodes, I believe. There are a lot of interesting consequences of Ghost.
Yeah. So more data required, please.
Dorcius
has. Oh yeah, we haven't changed him yet.
We haven't changed
him.
Keyword.
We have a number of players talking about Dorcius as being too strong. It's basically being included in even dark books because the amount of passive regen, the fact that Dorcius has Aegis and healing and regen for someone else, that people look at that and they're saying,
and it's a unicorn,
and it's. I mean, I love that it's unicorn,
but still.
But like the people are saying that it's too much, and they've always felt like it should change. We're not convinced it should change yet, but we'd love to see more games where Dorcius does get used. I'm thinking about putting Dorcius in a monk book just to say how is it actually benefiting even like someone that pays that kind of consequence for doing that. And I do want to point out that Unholy Reversal is a thing, but it may be that's abusive thing too. I'm not sure.
We think the counters are there. We think we're not quite to the point of changing him, but we can be convinced otherwise with enough data. So if you have something that's like, oh god, it's Disciple of Radiance level, show us.
So Elemental Mail.
Nothing is Disciple of Radiance level. Nothing.
Okay, fine. But you get the point I'm making is that if there's something that's broken, like we need to know about it. Just show us. Okay. Elemental Mail.
So some players are saying that the transfer is too much. Every game we've seen where the transferring, because it's infinite life bond to, not infinite, it's +2 life bond to as many as you want. So far, we have seen it where you could transfer up to 6 or 8. Most players are choosing not to because it actually hurts them too much. And keep in mind, it has no armor. And the original idea there was that armor -2 means you're reducing damage completely. The idea with the Elemental Mail transfer is you're maintaining the damage just throughout your forces. So
and you have to kind of manage where the damage is at various
Yeah.
points. So
Right. So, for instance, you could pull 2 damage off your Frost Elemental that just
Yep.
melted and put it on your Stormfront Elemental that isn't taking any hits.
it also
And you could do that in the
plays into-
upkeep
you
twice.
would bring it back to your
Yeah.
mage and then put it from your mage to the storm elemental. If you also transferred damage from your storm elemental, you couldn't go back. Just so you guys
We're
know.
also aware there's interactions with the new Pandemoniums, so that's kind of intended right now, so we can see how it plays out. So
Yeah.
again, that interaction, if we think it's a little like it seems a bit strong, but there's been a lot of quote seems strong and then
Yeah.
ends up being not used because even if you did use it, it wouldn't matter. Like
Yes.
let's see the data, but we are aware the interactions exist, and we'd like to see if someone has a problem with how that does, and if so, please show us so we can be on the same page.
Going along with that with Frost, we have seen some games where they use something like a Battle Fury with the Elemental Sword to get a double strike for double Frost using the Air Rune once.
The high-end spike's pretty good.
We're looking for those high-end spike things to see if we need to regulate anything. So far, I'm not convinced it's too strong. I'm seeing it on the same level about fire or rock.
Yeah.
But it's something that I want to see more games of because basically Frost is still so wishy-washy in my
Random?
head that
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that it's dealing damage like you see out of rock 100% of the time, you know?
Yeah, it's a different feel, and because of that, we want more data to show the trend. We don't want to be like, oh, this one game went really, really poorly for a guy who couldn't deal with Frost. No, we want the trend. The
It-
trend data is what's going to help us with Frost here. So if you have some of it, please send it to us.
Yeah, and in a lot of those games, I'm thinking because we're ramping down the mana generation for the Elementalist, I actually think that they weren't
Yeah.
blowouts for the Frost, but they just won from what seemed like a sudden thing, but it was really like 2 level 4 creatures just like
Right.
beating someone down.
The difference between it requires more tactical development and it's broken is actually
Yeah.
can be kind of a fine line, and we're trying to tread that. And the way to do that is get more data.
Yeah, we want
So,
Frost to work.
show us.
Honestly, we
Hey.
do, and we don't want it to be too strong or too weak. And I feel like with
getting
the terrain, we're feeling like Frost +1 is too much on the terrain right now, but
Possibly.
everything else is feeling about right. So, that's kind of what we want to see more Frost too.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that covers all of the focus. Please focus. Like, if you have the opportunity, these are what we're looking for data right now. That means between now and the next time we do one of these a week from now.
Yep.
We are open and we'll accept data for every other thing, but these are what we're focusing on this week. That and the Elementalist specific changes that we spoke about at the beginning. The more data you provide with these topics, the quicker we can move on to other topics. So if we don't get enough to focus on this stuff, we have to focus on them again. Just keep that in mind. We're not saying you have to, but this is where we are right now.
Yep.
I think the next thing is the exciting part, right?
Yeah. Okay. So I know
I'm having fun already.
Oh well,
Oh,
yeah, but
no,
this
I'm
part's gonna
not.
be cool.
I'm just in a rage. So I talked with Arcane Wonders, and they have some extra art that they were going to release, I think, for like Paladin versus Siren or something, that just never made it in. So what we're doing is a very fun thing with everybody. All you guys, I want you all to participate, please, because I don't want like 4 people to decide this because they're the only ones that took the time to vote. But we're doing a card creation project. Yeah.
Everybody gets upgrade
Bottom
card.
up from art to finished card.
Yep.
Yeah, so normally you create cards and then you bring the art when you confirm it. This is extra art they had because they weren't sure if they was going to make it. So, on the Arcane Wonders forum, there is currently a vote. We're going to do a vote every week, every dev diary we do. We're going to set another vote. So you guys have basically a week to vote. And I want you to look at this art. Look at this angel with a circle of fire here from the sword, and this knight that is taking arrows like a champ. And I want you guys to think, what art would this be as a card in Mage Wars? So basically, the first voting we're doing on the Arcane Wonders forum is voting the type. Attack. Is this a conjuration? Is this cool sword and equipment? Is this shield and equipment, or this, or maybe this cool helmet that has a giant fist in the air? And so basically, I want you to vote. You get 2 votes. Please vote for each card, not just 2 votes for 1 card. But I guess if you want to do that, that's fine too. And we're going to start that next week. I will then have the type of card this art is, and we're just going to have a blank card of that type. And then I'm going to ask something such as, I don't know, what level is this? Or maybe, I don't know, if it's a creature, maybe like, I don't know, probably what level we'll start with. But we're basically going to do a series of votes, and then we'll probably have the last few weeks of testing just to make sure it is balanced. And that's what we're doing. So if you guys aren't on the Arcane Wonders forum, you can sign up. That's fine. If you guys can't get through, just PM me on Discord or go to arcaneduels@gmail.com, and you can be like, yo, set me up on the forums, and I'll take care of that. If you don't want to vote, you can, if you don't want to vote in the forums, just send us an email. I can count that as well.
Somehow.
But
of note, right now, as of this recording, there are 8 people who have voted.
Heck yeah.
So
it's not even announced yet, so cool. So yeah, check it out. I think this would be a really fun thing that, when you guys see a card later on, this card, you'll be like, heck yeah. I also want to make sure these cards are usable, so...
Yeah, we'll get to that point eventually. But yes, right now we want to know what kind of spell you think they should be.
Yeah, so that is that. I think this art looks freaking fantastic.
Yeah, I'm pretty the art regardless of what it ends up being.
Yeah.
These are pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah, so I guess... open to questions, concerns, if you guys had any clarifications you needed. If you guys wanted to play on Octagon, I would suggest updating your image pack. It has all of these updated cards on there. You can find that in that Dropbox.
Yeah, I'll be posting in the Discord whenever I update the image pack, so just be cognizant to check that fairly often, because we do, at the very least, we do weekly on the day of or the day before these streams. I've gotten most of the automation working for at least most of the playtest cards. If there's any issues, let me know. The patch notes are on the forums. They should be posted with this video. We have all of this stuff around, but we're trying to keep that as up to date as possible to make testing at least seamless. At this point, we can take questions from the gallery. Yeah, so I see a question.
Did you have some questions that you already wrote down or saved?
I see one in the chat right now I can take.
There is a question of, Elementalist is 135. Is everyone else like that, like channeling? No.
The Elementalist, right?
Just the Element's 135. The Monk is currently 100.
Yep, Monk is low.
Monk is low.
The other question I'm seeing is, so far, what are the results we're seeing with Meltdown? And frankly, the Meltdown looks like it's right in line with where we think it needs to be. It's been used. I've used it once, and it got a decent return. I would consider it to be a good return, but not a blowout return. We're seeing people delay either too long or casting it too early. Like, it's still in the process of getting used to it, but it doesn't look like any more than just another option to go along with the explode, dissolve, rapid dismantle stuff.
Curse item.
It hasn't shown itself to be game breaking in the data we have. So if your opinion is different than that, please show us.
I actually am looking at it as it might be too weak right now, but I'm not ready to say it needs to be changed by any means. Most players that are taking it are just going, it's not worth casting. I mean,
part of the balance on it that doesn't seem like much at first is the choice of either minus life or destroy. It doesn't seem like much, but when you kind of when you kind of split the difference between both choice and minus life, both kind of seem underwhelming. When it happens.
Yeah.
And so capitalizing on that can be done. I haven't seen anybody exploit it yet, though.
I think that if you equate 1 life loss with 1 or 2 mana, that it is an extremely good card, because you either destroy an equivalent amount of mana worth of stuff, or you destroy a lesser amount of mana of stuff and give them life minus. I think it's honestly, if it's too strong, I would probably just raise its mana cost first before changing its effect.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
Yeah,
what we're
but,
looking at as the balancing factor right
But
now.
if it's too weak, there are several other options too. So more data, definitely.
And
has
then
anyone else tried testing the Dragon or Leviathan? I actually have a
haven't.
lot of Leviathan games.
Okay. I mean, I know we have Leviathan used for years. I haven't seen any recently.
Well, he hasn't changed.
So
But in my experience with Leviathan, it's tough to deal with.
he's
And
where
the
we want
question
a
is,
22 mana creature to be.
yeah, like the question is usually like, do you have things like reverse attack, blind? You know, do you have dazed stun chances? You know, things like if you try to deal with a Steelclaw Grizzly Bear, like oftentimes those same things you're using against Leviathan. So that's the question. Basically, has
Leviathan
anyone tried it? Yes, basically.
is slightly stronger than some like a Dramalek, for example, because the Dramalek's on the weaker end.
Yeah.
Dramalec's
an old card. That's why I
he's an
think.
old one.
Yeah.
But with the new, like I said, with the new paradigm of everything, we haven't seen anybody use Leviathan to the point of it being a problem.
Right now, I
It's
would
kind of
probably
where we
put Leviathan is about the same power level wise as probably about Allendale. Allendale being able to stun things, whereas Leviathan is able to deal more damage. I would put them about the same in terms of power and how I look at them.
Does feedback regarding non-duplicate equipment swapping look like? There has been almost no feedback either way on that one.
I've gotten some feedback.
Okay, I've gotten no feedback on that one, and it's definitely something we'll be focusing on, though it hasn't quite reached the level of oh god, Elementalist is broken kind of focus feedback.
So
you know what I mean?
we do actually have a replay pack that I do want to release to people. If you guys have Octagon to watch those,
If you have the subscription.
In general, what I've seen is, for instance, some of my own games is like I'll bring out a Mage Wand to help dissolve or something like that, and then I won't want to put it away. In terms of like armor swapping and stuff like that, there's currently a meta that's very anti-Acid Ball, and I'm wondering if it should be brought back to see how that's working there.
I haven't seen any problems with it because Neutralizing Mist is now a card.
Yeah, currently I would say that the swapping thing is actually not doing nearly anything, and it's only affecting people that are trying to.
When they cast it, I guess
It's only affecting things where people are trying to abuse the rule, basically.
Yeah.
I will say I am a little concerned about swapping hand equipment, but I think it's kind of necessary to say that. And that is if you have a bow.
Thematically, it's a bit weird, we understand, but that doesn't change the mechanical problem with the thing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We're still open to ideas at this point, but we haven't gotten a ton of data on it.
I'm fairly certain that if anything changes, it's just going to change. The minimum change for equipment is going to be same name. You can't target yourself with something of the same name.
Yeah.
Because that is a consistent rule for the rest of the game.
Very least will happen,
but we're still really looking for data on equipment swapping and whether
I'm guessing we won't make a decision for at least 4 or 5 weeks.
We have some time on that.
You know,
that one's not as big of a deal right now. It's getting the new stuff mechanically sound, so we can get better test data against them versus the rest.
Has Vetbelt been tested? Yes. Monk with Resilient has been tested quite a bit with Vetbelt.
Yep.
And it's been okay.
I don't know. I haven't noticed it be like it's a pain to deal with, but it's not that big a pain.
Well, they're paying
upkeep
one.
Exist across the board.
They're paying upkeep one. You know?
Piercing is great.
Yeah, right.
Piercing eliminates it. Dissolve, explode. Your typical rapid dismantle catches it because it's level 1.
Absolutely. Yep.
I think Vetbelt became much less of a problem after Lost Grimoire. I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of
because you got Vorpal Blade and you got Critical Strike, and there's just so many ways to get rid of armor now.
When stacked extremely correctly in the extreme right circumstances, yeah, it's a pain, but so is literally everything.
That's why we're trying to change the armor swapping rule. Because it's much more prevalent than a Vetbelt rule.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yep. Anybody else
Concerns?
got anything?
Would love to answer
while we're here for the next couple minutes.
By the way, you can't have armor while you're incorporeal. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah, the armor won't apply.
Your armor doesn't fall off, but you don't gain the benefit of the armor while you're incorporeal.
If you guys are looking to test the strength of Meltdown, I would love to see games where you have armor wards on, or
interesting point, too.
champions gauntlets. Those are very common strategies that you use to deal with Meltdown right now. I want to see if that's just makes it just useless, but you know, um, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that
People
covers
talking about
most of the
Fed Bell.
things. We're excited to catch more data from you guys as we go along. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride because it's a little bit nuts.
Heck yeah!
actually.
It's only been the first week, and these
Yeah,
I'm not
1
anticipating
weekend.
much like large changes like this every week. I'm
We've
expecting
made the
very minor
biggest
stuff.
changes I expect to make, and I think we've got the power level dialed back into within testing ranges, which
Yeah.
means we can tweak minor things here and there, as opposed to make whole scale changes like we did with Pandemonium, the Drake, etc. So
I could see one more change if people really don't like glyphs or really do like glyphs or something. We might make a large change, but we'll see what people say.
the large change numbers are going to be much lower, and even then, I don't know if we had too many. We actually got pretty close to where we intended to be after about a week. So
We've seen a lot of Wizard games, by the way, and the Arcane zap of being 2 mana hasn't really affected them too much.
well, it has, but it's been good effect, not
I-
bad effect.
I don't think there's any issues with it right now. Brute seems fine.
Has been fine. I mean, honestly, the only feedback we've gotten on Brute is that it's a fantastic change and needed to be done years ago.
Yep.
Like literally quoting in some cases.
We have seen some Pillar of Righteous Fury,
Flame.
a flame get used, and basically we're seeing a lot of 4 attacks out of it, which 9 mana for 4 to 6 die attacks is pretty dang good. Usually we're seeing it used on the Storm Elemental, Wind Elemental, because obviously they're the new cards. But in general, you're usually getting way more damage out of it than you're paying mana
Those have
wise.
played out. Also, the balance has made it so that you still use it, but it's not as oh my god, it's everywhere kind of anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
It turns into probably what I think it probably should have been when we released it. I say we, but when it was released, it probably should be something similar to what it is now. At the testing games I've seen, it hasn't felt like oh my god, I'm getting oppressed by Pillar of Righteous Flame. It's more of that was a good play.
If anything, if there were to be a change, I'd probably reduce it down to 3 Dissipate again, but I'm not really thinking too much about that right now.
All right. Well, that about covers everything, I think. We're trying to do this weekly, so we'll be back with this either next week or within a day or two of this day next week.
Yeah, probably Friday or Sundays is one of those two. We'll announce it ahead of time.
We'll put the announcement ahead of time. We'll make any major changes and ask for feedback every week like usual, and then we'll talk about the Create a Card project as well.
Heck to the
You
yeah.
guys got anything else?
I'm loving all these games, man. Seriously.
Yeah. Appreciate you
love
guys
it.
taking the time to help test.
Heck
Couldn't do
yeah.
it without you. Like legit, there's only 3 of us. We couldn't do it without you.
Oh yeah, this would take probably the rest of the year if it was just 3 of us.
Oh my god.
Okay, great. All right, well, everyone here, you guys all rock. We're gonna turn off the recording here, and we're gonna stop streaming, guys. Are we done?
Kill it with fire.
Kill it with fire. You guys all rock. Everyone on the YouTube world, please feel free to leave your comments, questions. If you guys have questions that came up in your games. I know a bunch of you guys are going to be playing this weekend, so feel free to just drop on Discord if you have questions during your games. One of the 3 of us probably will have it open at some point.
We're almost always around.
I know I have it on my phone, and I get prompts, so I can just answer right away. So, I will see you guys around. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Shark Puddin', always good hanging out with you guys. Bye.